medical schools and also worked in doctor's offices, so I had lots of different experiences as far as a nurse. In the hospitals I worked in, they range from about 40 beds to 350 beds. I worked primarily as a floor nurse in critical care units, usually primary care, and also worked in the emergency room sometimes. And occasionally I got pulled into labor and delivery because, you know, it's fun watching the babies, but wasn't my thing. In the skilled nursing facilities that I worked in, they range from 20 beds up to about 180. And I did management positions in those, and of course teaching, and then the doctor's offices, I was the office. So,
Wow.
that's it.
Thank you, Jan. All right, so make sure your cell phones are silenced. Don't forget the blue cart buckets. That helps for Alzheimer's research. Let's see. I haven't done this in a minute. So do we have any prayer concerns? Prayer requests? Huh? Okay, good. Let's see. Guest and raffle. I think I'm a little out of order, aren't I, Terry?
It's okay. I'll leave them right here. So we have a visiting Rotarian, Patricia Bryan from our Channel Club, so please welcome Patricia. Potential member, Judge U. Thompson was here with Lynn Chandler, so Judge Thompson, welcome.
Welcome.
For the speakers, James Kellogg, so we'll hear you.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so. Ask you if you don't mind then.
Remember which one I told you this? Oh, okay.
Thank you. The last four numbers are 5724.
Just.
You want to keep that at the end? No, you want to keep that at the end or no? No.
All righty.
Maybe next time. Maybe next time. All right. We have a small crowd today. Where's everybody at? Do we know? Where's your friends, Halsey? Where's your friends? Your friends?
Yeah, Karen's not here. William's on a 4-hour Zoom call today.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's fun. All right, so let's see. Community events. This is exciting. There's Ghost of Milledgeville walking tour that starts this Saturday. I personally would love to do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. And then there's Haunted Milledgeville exhibit at the John Marlar Art Center. Sounds like we're getting ready for Halloween. And then an exhibit at Lockerly Arboretum. This is gonna be super cool, y'all. It's a forest forms. It's an inaugural art exhibit. So there's all these, I don't think they're really statues, but some are big, some are small. And you walk through, and I don't know how many there are, but I've seen pictures. That looks really cool. So make sure to go out and take a walk at Lockerly. Any other community events that we know about? There is an event this Saturday. If you've never tasted lamb, Welcome's Hilltop Farm Market is having a little festival this Saturday. It's on Highway 22, and they're giving free lamb tastings if you want to taste lamb. And there was about 25 exhibitors, I believe. So that is happening this Saturday. All right. Club business. What club business do we have? I know we're collecting candy for our October service project. And then there's another service project for, I believe, reading at the Early Learning Center, reading aloud. Do you know what date that is, Michelle? Okay. I did it last year, y'all. That was so much fun, and kids are so appreciative. One of them just came up and hugged me and said, "I love you," because you know he enjoyed us reading to him. So if you get a chance, do that. You do have to fill out a little background check. No big deal. But that is a lot of fun. Any other club business that we know about? You got any, Herschel? No?
Not really, I mean, we're still, tracking right now about $4,000 into, annual giving fund right now for our club. Just want to remind you, I did have some papers out on the tables a couple of weeks ago about the taxes and all that. Still thinking about doing that, just because we need to, one thing I do want to, mention, I know Pedro mentioned it last week, but as far as the district conference coming up in April, it is a district, it's a statewide district conference for all the districts in the state. If you go on reservations, probably need to go ahead and start looking at it now. The closer it gets, the worse it's going to be to try and get a place to stay. Especially when I know the two closest hotels to the community center right now were already sold out right after the 1st of July when they opened up registration. So if you're planning on going, you go ahead and make plans at least get a room right there. You don't have to register for the conference, but you go ahead and get a room safe.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. Let's see, there is a Zoom call tonight. If you're interested in listening about foundation membership and public image, they've started a monthly call on Zoom where you can keep updated on what's going on district-wide there. So that'll be at 6:30 tonight. Some of you may have gotten an invitation, but if you haven't and you want to join in, let me know and I'll make sure you get the link. And I think that's all raffle started. Who sold a ticket already? 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I actually I had somebody go through the square process for me because I had not done that.
Yeah.
But there was a concern I think Greg had about the ticket number.
Uh-huh.
And so I did what they said. I watched her do it and then she got the email and then forwarded me the email.
Okay.
So anyway, I've never done it before, but made
it easy
Made
then.
it easier.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, don't forget the square option. If you have questions about raffle, questions about how to sell tickets, anything like that, see me, see Bobby, see Kristen, see Joy, see Michelle, see Mark, Lynn, there's a few that's like really gung ho and can answer your questions.
I'm gonna bring in a TV. I just waited to wait.
Okay. All right, so I think that's all I have. Mark, you want to come up and introduce our speaker today? Because this is the week for peace program. So, if you don't have a peace pen, make sure you get your peace pen. You say she's bringing in the TV?
Are you going to get a broadcast that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll get started on the introduction anyway, and then we'll hopefully have visual here. Dr. Callahan, the Assistant Vice President for International Education. His particular experience, which I'll get into in a minute, is more in the area of education and relationships in China. And in my own assessment of where we are in the world for peace today, I have to think that China is a huge part of which way we go in international world visions about peace. So I have asked Dr. Callahan to come talk to us today. He has a doctorate from Temple University, undergraduate and master's degree from Michigan State, and his current research is in semiotics of art. Now, how many people, no cheating, know what that is? I had no idea. I had to Google it. So I'm going to read it straight from Google, okay? The study of signs and symbols and their use for interpretation. I'm not sure I understand it anymore now. But that's what the Google machine tells me. Most recently, Dr. Callahan was selected to participate in the American Association of State Colleges and Universities delegation to China, where he was appointed the group's leader and spokesperson. He has collaborated with academic institutions in China since 2008, and it's my privilege to introduce Dr. James Callahan. We have tech, looks like we do.
We do, yeah. Let me just,
All right.
I'm gonna share it to our. Oops. There we go.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the very nice and flattering introduction. Yeah, semiotics of art, I recognize as kind of an oddball thing. And, yeah, and semiotics it's something that doesn't show up much in the United States, and I may be the only one in the United States that's doing this kind of thing. And basically, I got interested in this, about how art worked and what art was. When I was 12 or 13, and I was living in Bologna, Italy, and going to school every day and encountering works by Michelangelo and other people like that, even though I didn't know who Michelangelo was. Since then, I've been really interested in, okay, so how does art work? And the inner laws of art, as a colleague of mine has put it. And so I presented on some of my research at Sapienza University in Rome, in June, I believe. And that was really answering the question of what does it mean when we say that someone creates art? And it turns out to be something called semantic atmospheres. And I'm working on a new project right now, which is how is meaning generated in art? And I'm presenting that at the Sorbonne University in Paris next fall. So a little bit of an explanation about that. It's strange. It's stuff I've been interested in since I was 12, but really didn't know it, but I knew that it was kind of happening out there. Anyway, I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you so much for flattering me to come and to speak with you about a couple of things, most notably about Peace Day, about China, and also with a side note about Taiwan. And you're exactly right. I do believe that our relationship with China is really critical to world peace and to economic prosperity and a whole bunch of other things as well. So to do so in 20 minutes is a bit of a daunting task. I'm going to do the best I can, so I apologize for any shortcuts. And I hope that we might have some time to discuss things and just chat about world peace and maybe about China. Before getting into all of that, I must say that I went back and I looked at the website because I wanted to refamiliarize myself with your organization as Rotary. And I really, really saw a lot of really terrific things that really resonated with me. So I hope that I got, is this going on there? And,
No. Okay, here.
There we go.
Good.
There we go. So let me go back.
Easier.
Yeah, let's, we have enough empty seats. So you have a really, really good website for the organization. I learned a lot on there. First of all, it's really wonderful splash page. I'm really glad that I looked at it. Rotary is really tremendous. You guys can really be proud of the work you're doing in the organization you're a part of. I saw a lot of things that resonated with me in particular, starting with the vision statement that you have. Right? Vision statement is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. Furthermore, right, you are community builders. Obviously, I've already seen that today here. Opportunity creators, problem solvers, people of action. Additionally, there was a dedication to making a difference at home and around the world. Excuse me. And I was also very much taken by this statement here. Right. I wanted to do something to help prevent war, rather than addressing its consequences. That's really powerful stuff. And I applaud you for all that you do. I mean, it's a really, really great organization. I also love this image that I saw on the website. Right, this young lady who's right with a magic marker says, writing underneath that the peace word, the opposite of war is creation, and that has real resonance for me because, as you've heard, I work a lot in art, and my research is very much about how do you create art, what is creativity, what's involved with that, but also my professional work, right, is in the world of international education and international relations. And before 2008, I was involved very much with Europe. Ran a couple of satellite campuses over there. So going to China, starting in 2008, was something completely out of the box for me. So this is really, really a very powerful image that really resonates very, very strongly with me. Okay, so let's begin in earnest. The International Day of Peace, Peace Day, right? It's observed around the world each year on September 21, as you know. Established in 1981 by the UN so that all might commit to casting aside differences
Peace Day provides a globally shared date for all humanity to commit to peace above all differences and to contribute to building a culture of peace. This year's theme is Year of Peace, Year of Trust. And it's a dedication to resolve, ideally avoid, right? I would hope, conflicts through inclusive dialogue and negotiation in order to ensure the strengthening of peace and trust in relations and promoting peace, security, and human rights. That action towards preventing conflict we saw just a moment ago. Unfortunately, there's plenty of conflict, as we all know, right, in the world today. Turn on the news and see way too much of it. It'd be nice to just be able to switch the channel and find a place where it's not happening at all, right? As Mark said, good relations between the United States and China are critical, as is the avoidance of conflict related to Taiwan. And so to put our discussion into something of a bit of context, particularly with regard to Taiwan, I would like to present a very brief overview of essential moments in Chinese history. That's daunting in and of itself. Now, kindly recognize, right, that I'm a historian, right? I'm not a political science, I'm not an economist. So everything is going to be more focused on historical and culturally related things than on maybe some of the more nitty-gritty details. So to start with, China has a recorded history that goes back 4,000 years to the Shang Dynasty. It far outranks, therefore, say, Rome in terms of its continuous relevant history. So here you can see some of the relevant dates in their very early history, right? The Silk Road that ultimately connected China with Europe and the Middle East was started in 125 BC. I'm rather fortunate that I've seen both ends of that Silk Road. I've been at Marco Polo's house, and he traveled on the Silk Road, and I saw the gate in Xi'an where he entered and left the city. So that's kind of fun. A real high point in early Chinese history is the Tang Dynasty, which I consider to be something like the Italian Renaissance, an extraordinary period of tremendous creative growth, great diplomacy, and tremendous advancements in all kinds of ways. I first went to a museum in Xi'an, which formerly was Shanghai, the capital of the Tang Dynasty. I entered a room that had artifacts, artworks from the Tang Dynasty, and I was certain that I had missed a room along the way because it was just so stunning. You walk in, I really felt like I was in the Italian Renaissance there. So it was immensely sophisticated, produced outstanding art and culture, possibly the first university. There's some debate about that. And at its height, the Tang Dynasty was literally the center of the world, rather like London or New York today. And representatives of most everywhere in the known world can be seen in the capital city of Chang'an, frequently in their traditional native dress. So that's an amazing time period. And if you have some interest in early Chinese history, you want to take a look at something, take a look at the Tang Dynasty. It's fascinating and just beautiful, beautiful artwork. That image you see there, that's a Tang Dynasty woman. That's from a fresco in the tomb of Princess Yongtai, which is just outside of Xi'an. So skipping ahead to 1662, Taiwan appears for the very first time, right, in our discussion, 1662. And that's when it was first seized and then was annexed by China. And then was lost to the Japanese in 1895. Right? So at this point, you may be starting to see its central importance to China as an aspect of both nationalism and, as we will see, as general pride. With this next slide, we begin to encounter the start of a very long period of warfare and terror in the original sense of that term, right? It's taken on a different kind of tinge now. So just to go through this a bit, there is Sun Yat-sen's founding of the Republic of China in 1912, the 1921 forming of the Communist Party, then the extraordinarily horrific, if I can use that phrase, Shanghai Massacre under Chiang Kai-shek, a name that we will hear again in a moment, followed by a very violent reunification and confrontation with warlords throughout the land. The capture of cities like Nanjing and Shanghai by Japan in the Second Sino-Japanese War was followed by Japan's surrender in World War II, of course, which brought Taiwan back to China. And we'll see that Taiwan becomes a kind of a ping pong ball, flipped back and forth. With the next slide, we encounter extraordinarily tumultuous times that in many ways are hard to comprehend or really even to just kind of imagine, right? The civil war that resulted in Chiang Kai-shek, who we met on the earlier slide, and 2 million soldiers going into exile on Taiwan. And declaring themselves the governing body of China. So there they are on this little island of Taiwan, right? And they're claiming themselves to be the ruling body of this massive, right, almost continent-sized country of China. And you can see right there that that was a kind of a flashpoint. You can see how that would be really embedded into the psyche of the Chinese. As a further result of the Civil War, a very young Mao Zedong, and that's a picture of him at the time, rises to power, and he stays there, right? The Great Leap Forward, right, in quotation marks, was an attempt by Mao to shift China from an agricultural economic base to an industrial base. Coal became a major focus of what he was doing, and also a great need. And in fact, many of the universities in China today have their origins as Chinese, as coal mining institutions. And it's frequently the institutions that I've visited that have long histories have that in their origin. Private farming was outright banned, and 56 million people died by famine and suicide. Absolutely horrific. I mean, again, it kind of staggers the imagination. It's just hard to kind of comprehend that. Now, that disaster was followed by the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, which many of us are familiar with, where Maoism sought to replace capitalist tendencies and even traditionalist Chinese culture itself. As with the Great Leap, violence and death was a result of that policy. Now, on this slide, we begin to see some remarkable and pendulum swinging, whiplash-like types of events. In 1972, President Nixon arrived in China. It was the first ever visit by a sitting US president, and incredibly, in my opinion, right, the first diplomatic contact between China and the United States since 1949. I mean, that gives you some idea of how cut off and removed from progress China was during this period. I mean, you just have to think about all of the social, cultural, and technological advances that occurred between 1949 and 1972. It's extraordinary when you think about it in that way. And then with the death of Mao in 1976, Deng Xiaoping rises to power. Deng Xiaoping is a strange and kind of chameleon type figure. He crushes the Tiananmen Square protest in 1989, and then an extraordinary and very surprising thing happens. He embraces significant, almost Western reforms on his now famous Southern tour of Southeast China, telling his military leaders, the people that he relied upon to crush the rebellion in Tiananmen Square, at one point, quote, "Those who do not promote reform should be brought down from their leadership positions." It's an extraordinary remark given what had happened previously, right? That sets the stage for the economic boom in China, and the rest, as they say, is history. And as we're done, that the China that we know today takes shape. So it's a truly remarkable story, right? 4,000 years of history, the long extended period of just unfathomable violence and famine and uprisings. Really, really quite extraordinary. Deep turmoil. It also reveals the complexity, as we've seen, just brief glimpses of Taiwan in the Chinese psyche, both politically and otherwise. So with all of that, and I know that's a lot, I would like to tell you about my most recent visit to China as part of this ASCU delegation. It's my first visit to China since the pandemic. I think my last time there was in 2019. As you heard, in April, I was selected to participate in a delegation sponsored by ASCU, the Association of American State Colleges and Universities, right? Huge conglomerate of associations, and also by the main educational arm of the Chinese government, right? If you just think about those two things working together, that's an extraordinary thing in and of itself, at least in terms of what we see on the media today. In the background also was the US State Department, right? This kind of stuff doesn't happen with them being in there. The object was to visit Chinese universities and high schools and to open channels for educational opportunity. But as you can imagine, that also has a means of opening the door to other kinds of things in terms of general channels of communication and other relationships of various sorts. To put that last statement into some sort of context, when I arrived in Shanghai from Atlanta, we were told that we were the first US delegation We were told we had first US delegation.
That's true.
Did I hit something? As long as something doesn't fall down. Right. It's like when the airline pilot comes on the microphone and he says there's absolutely no cause for alarm and then shuts it off. That was please. Yeah, so anyway, so where was it? So we were told that we were the first US delegation to China since COVID. That was my introduction to what I was about to embark upon, right? So that was, okay, that's interesting. And then the first morning in Shanghai, with a very, very full day ahead, I was appointed the delegation head and also the chief spokesperson. And oh, by the way, you're speaking in and out. So there we go. So I was charged with giving the opening remarks at every single stop along the way, and at any official function that we were involved with, and also to respond to questions and so forth, right? Gulp, as they say in the cartoons, right? That was my reaction. Sure, sign me up. That was great. And I was very flattered to have been picked. I think part of it had to do with I have a history with Askew, and also I know my way around China, and they kind of figured, okay, he can take care of this and we'll be good. I hope that they were correct. So anyway, so right, here's a huge map of China. We spent over 2 weeks in China, and would be in a few places that, just grab my phone. Sorry. A few places that I had never been before. I'm off camera. So, maybe I won't show it. In any case, I've been as far north as Harbin. I've been as far south as below Shanghai, southeast corner. I've been as far west as Lijiang, which in the southwest, and the next stop is Tibet. And then I've spent a lot of time up in the middle of the country around Xi'an. Shanxi province. So we went to a couple places I hadn't been before, and that was pretty neat. So this is our route. We started in Shanghai, and then we went to Luoyang, and then we ended up in Beijing. We didn't fly between these places. We went by train, and the Chinese have built this remarkable high-speed railway system that they're very proud of, right? And they made sure that we knew that they were proud of it at every turn. And there you see one of the trains that we took. That's the one from Shanghai to Luoyang, I think. We covered about 2,000 miles on the ground in about 2 weeks, starting in Shanghai, as I said, and then ending up in Beijing versus via Luoyang, which is that kind of elbow in that route right there. The train from Shanghai was slightly older than the other trains that we were on. First generation model from about 2018, 2019. They have a gauge in the railroad cars, so you can see what's going on. It did 300 kilometers an hour, which is about 180 miles an hour. And we were on that train for 5 hours, so we covered about 1,000 miles in 5 hours. Imagine that. About 2 hours into the trip, I also had a realization that we hadn't gone around a single corner, right? It was a straight shot all the way, except when you're coming in and out of stations. The train would stop at the station for 3, maybe 4 minutes, and then got out of there just as quickly. The second train was a newer generation model, and it did over 325 kilometers an hour. So in a sense, it did over 200 miles an hour. So basically, we were riding around in an Indianapolis racing car that had like 600 or 700 or 800 people on board, right, while it was zipping along. And it was smooth as silk, which is appropriate for China, I guess. So, I mean, really quite extraordinary. Okay, and so in addition to stopping in these areas, we also kind of moved out. And so there you see, I just kind of put some arbitrary circles there of the places around these stops where we met with universities and so forth. Altogether, we met with about a dozen institutions, although it's probably a little bit more than that. And then there were official functions and all kinds of things that were going on. So we saw things like this, right? This is Shanghai at night is always amazing. And of course, they had us on an obligatory river cruise to make sure that we took it all in, right? And it really is impressive. And over there at the right, at about maybe 3 o'clock, is part of the old part of Shanghai, right? 19th century buildings and so forth. You can see the difference there. I mean, it really is an amazing thing. And they're still building. There's stuff going up all the time. It's amazing how quickly things change. So that was in Shanghai, and then at Luoyang, we visited this very famous site that I always wanted to see. I had never been there, Longmen Grotto. This dates to about 700. It's believed that the features of Buddha there in the center are the features of the first female empress of China, Wu Zetian. Very interesting and very enigmatic individual. And I was interested in that on another level because I had been to her mausoleum in Xi'an, right? Old Shangan in the Tang Dynasty. And so that's her mausoleum in the background in a mountain. And this is the boulevard, right, that they built in the Tang Dynasty with statues and everything along the side. And then at the right, you see this marker, which is called a stele. And normally that kind of thing will have engraved upon all the accomplishments of this individual, right? Did this, did that, did the other. Hers is entirely blank because she did not want to be remembered in that way. She wanted to be remembered for what she was, right? And so it's left completely blank. At least that's what the supposition was. And of course, you can't go to China without seeing the Great Wall. It's amazing. It's big, it's long, it's old. I get it. Okay, can we move on? Is kind of my reaction. I don't know if you ever saw Family Vacation with Chevy Chase when they go to the Grand Canyon, right? That's kind of me at the Great Wall. Okay, I get it. Right, next. But it is an amazing achievement, and the Chinese are rightfully very proud of it. So you can't get out of not seeing the Great Wall if you're on one of these things. Okay, you're going to the Great Wall tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. And then this was a fun thing, and I got to explain about this. So when we were in Luoyang, we noticed that the young people had this kind of fascination. And this industry has developed in Luoyang and also in Xi'an, I found out from friends of mine, where there are these shops where young people will go and they will rent costumes from the Tang Dynasty, right? And then they wear them all day long. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, imagine, you know, like American young people, right, dressing up like Thomas Jefferson or Betsy Ross or something all day, right? And they just go about their business. They've got their cell phones, they've got their Slurpees, they've got all this stuff going on, and they just wander around. And so this was in a museum at Luoyang, and I saw these two young ladies, most notably the one on the left, who I have seen in a Tang Dynasty painting. I'm absolutely certain of it. And I just was completely blown away. I said, okay, you got to get me a picture with me and these young ladies. And just to give you some idea of what this is like, there's a Tang Dynasty painting. And they have these amazing wigs with all the stuff in their hair. The costumes were unbelievable. I don't remember if they actually had the shoes. I don't think they did. But they would dress up like this all day long and wander around. And it was in old Luoyang, where you see the old buildings, right, that date back to the Tang Dynasty. You would see these young people gliding around in the shadows in the night, and it was like, you know, it was neat, but it's also a little bit spooky. It was really, really neat. So that was, for me, that was a high point because that was really, really terrific. Okay. So as I told our hosts at the end of the session in Beijing, these were my interests and curiosities coming into China. One was the state of China's schools and universities since my last visit in 2019, let's say pre-pandemic. The second was the state of, excuse me, I missed one. One was how China, of course, is faring after COVID. The second was the state of the schools and universities. Three, the perceived value of and for education in China post-COVID, what opportunities existed for exchange, and any continued trajectory, was there any, of receptivity towards China and US engagement and collaboration. And I can tell you that I came away very positively impressed with absolutely everything I see. They value education very, very highly. I had an opportunity at Longland Grotto. And one thing that I would do now and then was I would kind of move away from the group, sometimes just to kind of look at stuff, and sometimes just to kind of get away from the group for a little bit and have some thoughts. And invariably, someone would come up to me. They would say, okay, who's that tall guy in the Italian suit, right? And ask, okay, who are you, where are you from, and stuff. And then they would find out that I was an American, and we'd get into these really interesting conversations. I got to tell you this, in all the time that I've ever been in China, right, no one has ever come up to me and gone like, oh, you're an American, ooh, right? None of that whatsoever. They were really interested in what I was doing there, and I explained, right, we're part of this US delegation, visiting, you know, Chinese universities, learning about the education system, looking for ways to collaborate and do exchanges and stuff. It was really, really wonderful. And at Longman, I had a family came in and was talking to me. So those kinds of things were really, really terrific. So I was very positively impressed. They look to me like maybe they've come out of COVID better than we have. We still have a little bit of hiccups and hangovers that you can kind of feel from COVID. They're just moving along. They have electric cars like you would not believe. And you can tell which cars are electric because the electric cars have green license plates and the others have blue, right? So when you're caught in the inevitable traffic jam, you can see very quickly, right? Okay, those are electric cars. These are not. It's really, really impressive. Now, mind you, right, we were in metropolitan cities, so right, you get out into the countryside, probably a different story. But in the towns that we were in the cities that we were in, right, tremendous amount of electric automobiles and a huge infrastructure to support it. And when I asked about that, they said, yeah, the infrastructure works really, really great, except on holidays, because then everyone is like, it's like all crowded in on the charging stations waiting to get their cars recharged. So that was the drawback on that. So it's like I figured that out. So anyway, so those are the things that I was interested in. Perhaps we can discuss some of these with if we have some time left at the end. And we're almost there. So I'm showing you this because these are some of my remarks at a very, very large and a very, very formal meeting at Hunan University of Science and Technology in Luoyang, where we later had dinner on a very sudden basis with the mayor. This is a city of 2.6 million people, small town by Chinese standards. It was the biggest and the most formal of all of our many, many meetings, in fact. The reason why I'm sharing this particular comment with you is that later in that very same meeting, the Chinese side was quoting this back to us, and they were doing so very approvingly, with great sincerity, and also with a tinge of emotion. And it was really, really interesting, right? They really felt, right, the importance of all of this, right? So approvingly, sincerity, and also with emotion. So I leave you with that. And so in the interest of time, if I can get this going, I will leave you with that. Thank you again for inviting me to share some time with you. Thank you for all that you do. And I would love to hear some questions from you.
Can you talk a little bit about the one-child policy that y'all in China, and also will the government allow students to come to the United States on scholarships or visas?
Yeah, so the question was if I could discuss the one-child policy. I can a little bit on that, and the other one was also about whether Chinese students would be allowed to come to the United States. I'll answer the second one first. Right, currently we have a bit of a problem. This is why it was interesting that we were going to China with State Department in the background, because the State Department had told us that they were very much in favor of having Chinese students come to the United States. There are some visa issues and things to be worked out. There's also, I understand, some issues to be worked out in terms of financial aid, but it's very much a desire to have the Chinese students come, and so we spent a lot of time talking about that. Also, they're very keen, of course, right, to have American students come to China on study abroad programs, whether short term or longer term, and they're doing an awful lot more work in English at these universities. We just to continue my thought, and I'll come back to the one child. We met with universities of almost every type. So we met with Tongji University, which is the #2 university in China. And we also met with Renmin University, which is #5 university. And we met with a whole lot of universities who are in that top 10, top 20 tier as well. The one-child policy, yeah, that's going away. And it's going away pretty much kind of just by popular vote, right? Families are, young people aren't having children, right? And so there are ways to get around the one-child policy, as I understand it, that you could, slip some money to the right officials and you'd be able to get some things. And I understand that, families that had 2 children or more, that some of those children would be teased in school and so forth. It's like, you're a bought kid and things like that. So that's going away, particularly because the birth rate in China is crashing like a stone. I was looking at a chart on the way over here just to be prepared, and it's just a cliff, right? They have something like, what is it? Hang on, let me get this now that I'm saying about it. So they in India have the largest population, so they've got 1.4 billion people right now. But and I can show you the chart if you want to come up to it. It looks like a hill, right? Because it's big, steep, like Wu Zetian's mausoleum, steep climb, and then just an equal decline on the other side. And so they're going down. India and China are about the same in terms of population, but probably by 2030, 2035, there's going to be a very big differential between India and China.
Dr. Callahan, he and I were at Pembroke together, maybe just missed each other, I can't remember. But I know in the late nineties when we were there, you know, Alex used to be there. And
Yeah.
the guy was, China was a large population that was coming over here. Has that diminished over the last few years and the COVID, but just in general?
Yeah, there's a
I'm
couple
just
of
curious.
factors. There are a couple of factors there. One has to do with U.S. policy, right? And also it depends upon the administration that's in power in Washington D.C.
Okay.
Right. COVID was a huge interruption. Of course, visas are getting are hard to get, and so there's been all of that. We lost, so to speak, a lot of Chinese students to, say, the Australians, who are very market driven, are very competitive, but also to the UK. But even there, they're beginning to tie up some of their things with regard to immigration. So the Chinese want to come here.
Okay.
Right? Most international students want to come here because they recognize that we have very, very high quality institutions, right? And then there are also opportunities to go on and be employed, or at least take those credentials and move elsewhere. And I did some research a while back, I think before I came to Georgia College, and there was a kind of a plus for students who started in one country, study in the second country, and then move on to a third country. Something that I'm looking at. There's some ways that we can work with that.
What's our current population of international or Chinese students specifically at Georgia College now?
Chinese students at Georgia College, it's very simple. It's a very simple answer. We have zero.
Okay.
But we have had Chinese students in the past,
Yeah.
and it was COVID that really kind of
Right. Okay.
of beat that up.
Were or were you not, or what information did you bring back from China, such as pictures, any kind of written notes or anything like that? Were you scrutinized or any of that stuff reviewed prior to coming
No.
back from over there?
No.
Had it ever been that way during your travels?
Not in my travels. I've never had that.
Okay.
I've never had that, and I can't speak to anything previously. I will tell you this, and that is that we, myself in particular, are obligated to give a presentation at the end of the delegation's time in Beijing. And I thought, okay, it's be easy to do. It was really hard to do because trying to get on the internet in China, really hard. And I realized then, we were talking about how cut off China was, right? Between 49 and 72. In many ways, they are still very much cut off because of the lack of availability. So you can't get onto Google, right? You can't, look at websites. You can't, look at the news. I mean, it was really, I mean, I knew this, right? But until I was sat down at my laptop one night and tried to put together this presentation, which would normally be quite easy, right? You go on, you Google this, you grab that, you get this photo, that photo, all that stuff, right? It was really, really hard. Fortunately, I'd already pre-prepared a bunch of stuff, and so I was able to use it. But it was at that moment that I realized, okay, these people are really cut off,
That's by design, by the government, right?
by design. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment, I've had, I guess I could call it a pleasure, I've been into China in 2010 with Exchange Bank Supervisors Group. And it's interesting, some of the things you mentioned, it's an amazing country, and I will tell you, out of all the trips that I've been fortunate to be on, that was the most amazing trip I've ever had. Now, did I feel, I knew it was a communist country all the time. I stood in Tiananmen Square and it was on the Great Wall, all the things that you said to yourself, my gosh, how did this really, how am I here? I knew I was an American, I mean, I felt the American, but I also knew that they knew I was American. I never was afraid, and I never was scared. I was actually honored to be there, and they were very respectful. It was an amazing country.
Gentlemen,
We had two guys. One was a Canadian and one was Chinese, and she had majored in English and wanted to teach English over in China. And the government said that she could do that, and so she did that for a while, but she didn't like it. She had to ask the government if she could be a tour guide, and they said, okay. She knew idioms, she knew all about America until you asked her anything at all about the government, and then she didn't know anything.
yeah, and I was going to make the comment.
I remember that part of it, and they are definitely controlling everything that they're there are people here and know and learn. It's
Yeah.
very sensitive and you felt that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tiananmen Square, and I went, at Pembroke, I took some students to China with a collaborative program with one of our partner universities. And Tiananmen Square is where you have to be careful, because you have to be careful what you say. You have to be careful about the questions that you ask. Not so much that you're going to get in trouble, right? But you might get your guide, or you might get some colleague that's with you in trouble, purely by accident, right?
Wow.
Without trying to cause anything. So you do have to kind of watch out for that.
Is there a McDonald's over? I'm just curious.
There are McDonald's absolutely everywhere. There are McDonald's every, Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you name it, they got it.
That's all over there. Okay, good.
Yeah, and a friend of mine told me, she said that the young people can tell when someone is interested in them because they will take them to a coffee shop instead of to a tea house.
Huh.
Because-
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they did.
Like to present you, we have a program called Jill's Books, and if you wouldn't mind signing this book, and then we have a pen for you, a rotary pen. This one is actually from India, I believe.
Wow.
So
Great.
you'll sign that.
I'd be happy to. So, just figure out how this works.
Yeah, you pull it off.
Okay.
How long was that flight over there?
It's too long. Actually, coming back was worse because I had started in Beijing and I had to change in Shanghai. It took me 33 hours to get back to Milledgeville.
Oh,
But the flight itself is about 12 or 13 hours, depending on how your tailwinds are.
Thank you. And we also want to make sure you have one of our peace pins. which
Absolutely.
commemorates the Peace Monument downtown, first one in the United States.
Very good. Thanks so much, everybody. This is really, really good.
All right.
all right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yes.
She said it's been acting up for a week. I think it's been acting up longer now.